Welcome everybody to our very first 6G Architecting Tomorrow session. Today we will focus on the value blueprint. I'm Rudi, Nokia Standards Marketing Lead, and it's my privilege to be here together with you today as we explore the journey towards 6G. In this session we will explore the value of 6G, highlight some of the key innovations that will be essential in shaping this new specification, and we will look into the next steps in standardization. But I will not be doing this alone. I'm excited to be joined today by three of our top 6G experts. First, we have Gloria Touchard, who is our Voice of Customer CTO. Thank you for joining, Gloria. Then we have Sari Nielsen, who is Balazs Fellow and heading up our radio protocol standardization. Sari is a world-renowned radio expert. Welcome, Sari. And finally, Balazs Bertenyi will join us and share his perspective. Balazs is heading up the 6G pre-standards for Nokia and is a long-term 3GPP expert, having chaired multiple important groups in the past. Welcome to you too, Balazs. As you can see, I'm today in great company with these three esteemed 6G experts. And the next 30 minutes will be for sure both inspirational and educational. The session of today comes at a pivotal moment, as earlier this week, the official 3GPP 6G standardization process began, bringing together over 1,600 delegates for the very first 6G workshop, which was held in Incheon, South Korea, with an equal split between people being in person and people being online. I've heard from our Nokia delegates that a lot of things were discussed, so let's dive in to learn the latest and greatest. Gloria, could you maybe start by reminding us why we at Nokia strongly believe that society and our industry needs 6G?
Sure, Rudi. Thank you for having me here. So when we are talking about why 6G, first thing we need to do is to travel to 2030, because it's by then when we expect to have the first 6G network deployments. And what we need to do is to look at what are going to be the technologies that will be shaping the future and that will be shaping in 2030. And will have AI all around us. AI will be embedded in applications, will be embedded in the devices, will be embedded in the network. We will have as well network clock continuum, where we will have the platform that will be integrating together the clock capabilities with the network capabilities. More and more, we see that the data centers needs to be distributed. We will have more computing capabilities, more to the edge to be closer to the end user, but as well, the centralized data centers needs to be more distributed because there's not enough energy in one city to provide more capacity and more GPUs. All these will have an impact in the networks. We will have as well quantum compute. By 2030, we will have the capability to consume more widely. And it will not only provide new capabilities, but as well, it will be bringing new security threats and challenges. So we will need to work as well to evolve the security we have today in the networks and the encryption methodologies that we are using today to be sure that we can secure our networks against quantum. Space communications will play as well a big role. We already have LEO satellite constellations, and these will be evolving and these will be more densified, and we will be collaborating with cellular networks. And all these we will need to be done with sustainability technologies. We need to keep being very conscious that we have our targets on zero emissions, and as well that we deploy technologies that are inclusive. So we need to bring all these technologies to everybody everywhere. And we will have as well a wide, diverse ecosystem in terms of devices. We will have from smartphones, smart devices, wearables, IoT devices, but as well drones or even flying taxis. So all these devices will be embedding AI capabilities, but not all of them will be able to have the computing capabilities that these AI applications requires. So will we have an effect as well in terms of architecture? Well, devices will need to have certain computing offloading towards the cloud network. And that will mean that we will be demanding more and more to the network, not only in terms of throughput, especially in uplink, but as well requiring low latencies. And that will be materializing new use cases like digital twins or virtual reality that will be evolving and will be more demanding in terms of capabilities and in terms of computing. And all these will have an effect on the traffic that the networks will be running. If we look at the Bell Labs consulting analysis that they have done in terms of traffic growth, and they forecast that the traffic in the network will grow between 6 to 9 times. But it's not only about new traffic. What we can see is as well that AI is triggering new traffic streams that it didn't exist last year, for instance. And the fact that we have different traffic streams, we have more mix in the network, and we will have as well different profiles that the networks will need to cope with. The AI traffic is expected to be quite spiky, and we will need to provide an answer with the CSG networks in order to adapt to it. And that's what is 6G about. It's about bringing performance leap and network efficiency to give an answer to all these requirements. 6G is bringing extreme automation, superior radio. It's going to be unlocking a new spectrum and as well taking the most of the current spectrum. And it will bring new and simple architecture and modular architecture. And 6G will be bringing as well new opportunities for growth and new opportunities for business. And it will be bringing that thanks to the user experience that is providing with good uplink, low latency, but as well opening and exposure and bringing exposure to the network at all levels.
Thank you, Gloria, for those valuable insights. So to summarize, 6G will anticipate on the change in data traffic, and at the same time, it will offer the opportunity to embark on these new technologies. And in this way, 6G will not only bring value by offering top-line revenue and business growth, but also by a performance leap and network efficiency. And this leads us perfect to our next speaker. Sari, could you please walk us through what you see as the key evolutionary and revolutionary components of the 6G radio?
Thank you, Rudi. And hello, everyone. So I will then talk about how we'll bring 6G values that Gloria talked about alive in practice. And one key element for enabling all 6G benefits is a single standalone architecture combined with the 5G 6G multi-rad spectrum sharing, which will be an implementation-friendly system and allow energy efficient system as well. Dynamic 5G 6G spectrum sharing MRSS will enable best possible spectrum migration for the 6G and allows 6G to be deployed on an existing FR1 bands, both DDD and FDD, with a very high performance. MRSS is an integral part of the radio design for the 6G and is available for day one deployments. It is transparent to the UE and therefore easy to deploy right away. And when we combine MRSS with the 6G carrier aggregation, including uplink carrier aggregation, we are able to also combine the capacity bands like upper 6 gigahertz and 7 gigahertz, get the capacity gains as well. And then next we look deeper into the superior 6G radio and how we can obtain high performance radio with the lean design, which is well suited for the practical deployments. And we see that the key for that is that 6G radio will provide elevated performance on the existing frequency bands like FR1, FDD, and DDD bands, and of course on the new frequency bands like upper 6 and 7 to 8 gigahertz, which of course have a more spectrum available. And we see that to make a 6G cost effective and easy to migrate to, we need the base station evolution and hardware reuse for the network upgrade from 5G to 6G. And to achieve that, we see that the key physical layer elements like numerology, waveform, and channel coding should be based on the 5G. This will then also enable very high performance 5G, 6G MRSS that we just talked about. And to achieve superior radio performance, we can then, and we plan to have a physical layer, new procedures and new layer 2 and 3 procedures. And when we combine with the fact that we don't have the constraints of the legacy devices, and we can refresh the device modem and device implementation, we can natively support and have a support various different functionalities, and key performance then can be achieved. If we then look a bit more how we can achieve a superior 6G radio performance at the new frequency bands like upper 6 and 7 to 8 gigahertz, which are the growth for the engine for the capacity growth. And we know that there is a more spectrum available, and therefore we can have a wider channel bandwidth. And also because of the higher frequency, we can have a higher number of elements, antenna elements for the beamforming and MIMO use, which will then provide better capacity and spectral efficiency as well. And again, to make the system affordable, it is important that we can reuse the existing macro sites so that we don't have to build the new sites, and also we can also have the same deployment. And because we have a higher number of antenna elements possible with the same physical size and for antenna, we can get the coverage gap reduced and have similar coverage both for the 3.5 gigahertz and 7 gigahertz. And with the higher number of antenna elements, we can also then get a MIMO and beam management gains for the spectral efficiency and capacity enhancements. And then we look at another important area for the 6G and an important technology, and that is network energy savings that has to be also available at day one. And like also other basic functionalities, this has to be a part of the basic design rather than a separate feature. And we see that the way to achieve this is that we don't have a legacy devices that we have to care. So then UEs will support network energy saving functionalities by design from day one. And the aim is to have deep sleep opportunities in a more extreme manner by having a cell and beam shutdowns when there is no traffic ongoing, which allows us to get close to 0 watt when there is no traffic. And at the same time, we also need to develop solutions for network energy savings and energy efficiency for the actual traffic, so that we optimal manner operate MIMO and do the savings, power savings, whenever there is a gap for a little power savings. And for that, we then have various different technology components that are then natively supported. And then finally, what we see important for the 6G is that the 6G will natively support different device type that Gloria already mentioned, that there are more rather an increase in number of devices, different type of devices, and than before. And we have learned from the 5G that when we do a system so that we define the system first for the broadband services and smartphones, we later on start doing simplifications and support for different use cases and verticals. And this will then make the system more complex. It also fragments the market and delays the deployments of these features and new type of services and devices. So to avoid this and have a easier way of allowing different device types without having the degradations in the system performance, 6G should be designed so that it's natively support these different device types. And the way to achieve this is by having a modular design for the radio protocols, so that we can optimize different device types as the need is, and optimize the layer 2 processing, use more hardware friendly implementations and parallel processes. and this we believe that will then serve well different kind of use cases and different device types also in the future.
Thank you, Sari. It is clear that 6G radio has a lot in store for us. I like your catchphrase. 6G will be a superior radio with a lean design for practical deployments. Balazs, what key milestones do you anticipate between now and 2030 to transform our 6G value proposition into reality? And if I may, already a related follow-up question, could you also share your and Nokia's insights on the key takeaways from the 3GPP workshop that you attended this week?
Thank you very much, Rudi, and welcome everybody. And just to follow on from what Gloria and Sari said, we're going to delve into how 3GPP is actually planning to build 6G standards. And we're going to do that by looking at when, and looking at how, and looking at what exactly 3GPP plans to build. So starting with the when, our vision at Nokia is to put a 6G device in all of your hands by early 2030 and to allow operators to upgrade their networks to 6G in early 2030. And how exactly we do that? We have already a plan devised back in December 2023 by 3GPP. We just had a workshop that I'm going to allude to a little bit later what it exactly did, just now in March 2025, and we're going to start the studies in June 2025 in 3GPP that will lead into normative specifications starting in March 2027. And at least our vision in Nokia is to finalize the normative specifications of 6G by the end of 2028. And that would essentially allow a commercial launch of 6G by the fourth quarter of 2029, more mainstream towards the early 2030s. Then going into exactly how 3GPP should go about this. And we have done a bit of an analysis, and we have basically 25 years of experience now with cellular standards and 3GPP. And there are a couple of important points that we found are essential to make sure 6G is as successful as possible. Number one is a single architecture, single control plane that is basically allowing the industry to head sort of one mainstream way and not have it fragmented like we did a little bit with 5G across non-standalone and standalone. No multiple options, have one way of doing a certain functionality, both in device and the network, and this really maximizes the commercial uptake opportunity of all those features. Staying close to mainstream, that is especially important from the perspective of verticals that have typically limited device numbers. We can't not justify having sort of bespoke design for such limited device numbers. So basically, we need to stay close to mainstream for as many of the verticals as possible. And when we look at the baseline and when we look at some of the things or some of the examples where we did a major redesign in mid-generation, that was typically not a success. So we need to put all the major design features as part of the first release, and all the key elements would need to be put as part of the first 6G release. We will still, of course, sort of incrementally bring in new functionalities, features, and improvements. But in terms of major redesign, in the past, it has proven to be not possible. In terms of end user value, it's very important that every feature and functionality that we bring to 6G and to the standards has a clear and tangible end user benefit. And these are the features that will then make it to the market. Okay, now moving on to the what. And this is very interesting because we just came off a 6G workshop of 3GPP that was held with more than 700 people in Incheon, Korea. And many of the takeaways that, at least from our side, we took away from that workshop resonate really well with what you just heard from Gloria and Sari. So in terms of key values, improved end user and customer experience, new services, reduced TCO. When it comes to the system performance, the classic metrics of throughput, coverage, energy efficiency, security. You just heard these from both Gloria and Sari's, and we were very happy to see these echoed across the entire sort of industry landscape as the presentations came about at the workshop. Now, if I were to single out two key attributes of 6G, I would basically choose sustainability and AI/ML. So these are the two key pillars that are fundamental game changers. We've had, of course, energy efficiency as a feature of 5G, but starting with a fresh, clean sheet of paper, we're basically able to design the 6G network, the devices, natively supporting all the different energy efficiency means. Similar for AI/ML. We've been doing AI/ML already for 5G Advanced, but designing a network and designing the system in a way that is natively having AI/ML as a cornerstone design criteria is going to be a massive game changer for 6G. If I look at the network a little bit more, three things: programmability, that allows for rapid service deployments; compute, so with the new sort of platforms that operators are bringing in, there are massive compute resources that can be utilized; and then monetization of network assets in general through APIs towards third parties. So these themes were very prominently coming out from the workshop. And when we look at services, we expect that most of the existing legacy services will need to continue to be supported in 6G. But then, of course, there's going to be a whole host of new and expanded services like sensing or improved fixed wireless access that 6G will have to support. If I look at radio a little bit more in detail, again, what we saw was very well aligned with what Sari just explained to you, the Nokia views were. So in terms of the 6G radio design, number one goal is to ensure we have significant gains that commercially justify 6G radio. We strongly believe this is very much possible, mainly through two things: non-backwards compatible design from a device perspective, but then from the network perspective, we see it more as an evolutionary characteristic, reusing some of the 5G MR or many of the 5G NR radio designs with possible enhancements, of course. And this allows operators to reuse many of their existing network assets. When it comes to spectrum, we see 6G operating both in existing spectrum, all the different existing spectrum bands from low band FDD all the way up to millimeter wave, as well as some of the new bands that the World Radio Conference is scheduled to allocate towards IMT. That's upper 6 gigahertz and 7 to 8.4 and some of the other frequencies. In terms of the network itself, as also Sari mentioned, and also one of our sort of how criterias determined, having a single architecture is very important. We believe that shall be based on a standalone architecture with very efficient multi-radio spectrum sharing between 5G and 6G, and then an aggregation technology that we believe ought to be based on carrier aggregation. And we saw this echoed across vast majority of the companies at the workshop. Some of the other aggregation means may also be studied, as we saw from some workshop presentations, and we'll see exactly what additional 5G, 6G aggregation means we will need on top of all this. So that was all from my side. Again, thank you very much. Back to you, Rudi.
Thank you, Balazs, for that clear and insightful explanation. This week clearly marked the start of an exciting journey that will bring our industry, if I calculate it well, in the next 46 months to the first 3GPP 6G specification, which will then allow us to enjoy the value of 6G by the end of this decade. And it also brings us already at the end of this event. We hope this session has sparked your enthusiasm for 6G and inspired you to join us in architecting tomorrow. If you'd like to explore more about Nokia's 6G vision for 6G, I encourage you to visit our website, read our blogs and white papers, and follow us on social media. And with that, I want to sincerely thank you for joining us today. Thank you to our three speakers, Gloria, Sari, and Balazs. We look forward to welcoming you to our next 6G Architecting Tomorrow session, where we will dive into the transformational power of AI. See you soon.